Hello and welcome, wherever you are and whenever you are watching this. My name's Emily, if you don't know already. I'm a health coach, personal trainer, and nutrition geek with a special interest in the menopause. Now, I want you to think of this session in two ways. The first is, how can we use our menopause as a time to thrive? Because this is how I think about the process on a good day, because there are good days. The second is, what can I do to make the best of a bad situation and a difficult time? How can I get through this with the minimum of battle scars? And I call this Mission Menopause. It's okay to think about this process differently on different days. Just know that the things we need to do to stay healthy and feeling good are pretty much the same, even if we think about them differently. Now, I should say that we don't talk about HRT in this session because I'm not a medical expert, and there are also loads of places you can find info on this. I also want you to know that this isn't an opportunity for you to sit back and think of England as I talk. This is an interactive session, and I encourage you to pause it, to make notes, or to think about what you can do to survive and possibly even thrive in this phase of our lives. So, firstly, we're going to go into some facts. The menopause marks a time in a biological woman's life when we transition from having periods to not. The perimenopause, which simply means around menopause, can start anywhere from your late 20s to your late 40s, with menopause happening between 45 and 55, the average age being 51. 80% of women report having symptoms related to the menopause. 25% categorize these symptoms as severe, with 10% experiencing symptoms so severe that they choose or feel forced to stop working. On average, perimenopause symptoms last for 2 to 10 years, with menopause symptoms lasting 4 years, again, an average. So that's between 6 and 14 years worth of symptoms for an average woman, which is pretty stark information. The good thing is, a lot of the symptoms we face can be managed and relieved, and we're going to cover how we can do that now. There is a huge list of symptoms associated with the menopause. Some of us will only be mildly impacted, some of us severely. Many of the symptoms we face can be proactively and should be proactively managed ourselves. Why? Because it'll help us cope with what we're feeling day to day. It will improve our experiences now, as well as setting us up for the rest of our lives. And we also know that when you are being proactive, it can help us feel a lot more positive around the situation that we face. A lot of what we talk about here isn't going to be new information. However, I will explain why the guidance you've heard for your whole life becomes more important in menopause, how these things can impact on our symptoms, and how making changes can support us now and in the future. Now, menopause is a time of transition, an inevitable part of a woman's life that can't be fought off, even if we'd like to be able to. Firstly, we're going to cover the emotional responses that come with this process, because it can't be denied that it makes us think differently about life. It forces us to recognize that we're aging, and for some of us that means facing our mortality and thoughts of what comes next. So tell me, what kind of emotional responses do you get when you think about or experience menopause symptoms? The next thing is to think about how we can process these emotions. What are the practical steps we can take to deal with them? And the first is self compassion. What we're feeling is normal and natural. No amount of guilting ourselves or telling ourselves we're bad is going to help, and actually is probably going to help us feel worse. So, showing ourselves some kindness can go a long way to improving how we feel. We can use techniques like journaling. So, being able to write down our thoughts and feelings can help us ease them, but it can also help us pick up patterns with our experiences and just process those experiences. We can use our social networks. Reaching out to a friend can be incredibly helpful, whether it's online or in person. We can have a physical outlet. We know that being physically active can help us deal with really difficult feelings and sensations. We can get creative, learning new skills or being able to channel our energy and activity can help us feel really positive. And we can talk to the people who feel our wrath. We can remind them and ourselves that this is normal and natural. It's not our fault, it's not their fault. And we can talk about how to show patience and support through what can be a really difficult time. And then we can reach out to professionals. Sometimes all of the proactivity just doesn't help. So, reaching out to a therapist to be able to process the emotions, or a GP to get medication or medical support where required, can be really helpful. One of the things that can't be prescribed but can be a vital part of making our menopause easier is how we share it, whether it's in our own little communities or with the people nearest and dearest to us. Why? Because we're riding an emotional roller coaster, and that can leave us feeling isolated and sometimes out of control. If we share that with the supportive people, it can ease how we feel, it can give us an outlet, and it can help us see that we're not on our own. How we share, though, is something we'll come back to later when we talk about feeling good. Whether we're aiming to thrive in menopause or just fighting for self preservation, the deliberate choices we make to look after ourselves and our health will change us physically, as well as improving how we think and feel. So let's get into what we can do, focusing on three specific areas, which are staying strong, nourishing ourselves, and feeling good. Now, I should say I haven't chosen these areas particularly because I'm a personal trainer, but because the evidence when it comes to some very limited menopause research indicates that these are the three key areas that we can take control of or we can influence to help improve our experiences. Being active, eating well, and taking time to work on our emotional health not only improves our symptoms now and our lives now, but also the lives of the people around us and our future lives. Now, through this session, I'm going to share some important facts because if you take nothing else from what I talk about today, there are some really important things that we and every woman should know. And the first is that when we hit 30, we start to lose our muscle fiber, which means we go through a very slow and steady decline in strength, which has the knock on effect of losing bone strength and density, which is why we end up at risk for conditions like osteoporosis, otherwise known as brittle bones. The good thing is, these changes can not only be mitigated but reversed. We just need to take charge of our health by changing or improving how we treat our bodies and ourselves. So, what does staying strong mean to you? Is it what our bodies look like? Is it being able to do the things we enjoy? Is it being able to stand up if we fall over? And how does staying strong link to the symptoms and impacts of the menopause? Well, it has many, many, many benefits, from maintaining our muscle fiber and bone density to giving us a positive physical outlet for the emotional ups and downs. How do we do it though? Simply put, we need to keep using our muscles, from day to day movements to challenging them by asking them to do hard things. But what does this really mean? It means doing strength and impact exercises. Strength exercises are movements that use our body weight plus additional resistance from exercise bands or weight. Impact exercises are movements where our feet leave the ground in things like jogging, dancing, or fitness classes. Heck, the Royal Osteoporosis Society states that 50 star jumps a day is enough to help maintain our bone strength. Although, for some of us, that might mean investing in some tenor lady. Now, while strength training is the gold standard when it comes to keeping our muscles and bones strong, there are other things that we need to think about. We need to think about our general fitness and health, which is what we come to next. Working on our general fitness levels is really important for maintaining heart and lung health. Also helps us manage our stress levels, feel good emotionally and physically. Examples of this type of activity are taking a walk, dancing around the kitchen, swimming, riding a bike. And how does it all fit together? The NHS recommends at least 150 minutes of moderate or 75 minutes of vigorous exercise per week. How do you know if it's moderate or vigorous? You can use something called the talk test. If you're doing something and you can talk in complete sentences, it's mild to moderate. If you're doing something and you can only respond in broken sentences, one word answers, or even grunts, that's vigorous. So, in an ideal world, which most of us don't live in, we'd be looking at fitting in 3 to 4 exercise sessions per week to make up that 150 minutes of moderate or 75 minutes of vigorous exercise, as well as improving our daily movement just through going out for walks or simply making an effort to move more when we're in the house. But that is in an ideal world. In reality, simply doing more than we're doing now is a really good start and one that we can build on. If you're starting from nothing or simply hate exercise, talking about introducing these kinds of things can feel pretty big and scary, but it doesn't have to. You can exercise at home and see great results. To start with, all you need is some exercises to follow and your body. As you get stronger, you can get resistance bands from Amazon. They only cost about £6. And if you're feeling more confident, you can go to a class. You can join a gym, you can find a personal trainer and really dive in. The key to making these changes and making them not just for today, but for tomorrow and all of our tomorrows is to keep doing it, which is where, for a lot of us, the real challenge comes in. If you've ever joined a gym and then gone a couple of times in the first week and then it's tailed off from there, you'll know what I mean. But there are some ways to make it easier to consistently be active if it's something you struggle with. You can do it with friends. We know that being active with people you like makes it much easier to do if it's not something that comes naturally. We also know that our social connections are vital for good mental and emotional health, whether you're an extrovert, an introvert, or anywhere in between. You can commit to sessions where someone is expecting you. You're much more likely to follow through if not turning up to do a session doesn't just impact on you. You can make what you're doing achievable. Having goals and aiming high can be helpful. But when our aspirations are out of reach, it can lead us to feeling like we're failing, and that can be really disheartening and can stop us from wanting to participate at all. You can find something you enjoy. Exercise is hard. Spoiler alert, it's supposed to be. It can also feel boring, and quite a lot of us don't really enjoy it and therefore don't do it. However, if you can find something that you hate the least, it can go a long way to helping you to stick at it consistently. Are you still not convinced on the importance of exercise to support your menopause journey? Time for some facts. Fact two: exercise not only keeps us strong, but it also improves our symptoms. Stress, sleeplessness, weight gain, and hot flushes are all improved through exercise. Yes, even though exercise makes you hot and sweaty, it can actually improve hot flushes by improving our thermoregulatory control, our vascular function, so how our veins and arteries work, and how our body dissipates heat. Fact three: urinary incontinence can be a menopause symptom. I know I joked about the tenor lady, but for a lot of us, it isn't a joke. Changes in estrogen levels can thin our urethras and our pelvic floor muscles weaken as we age. It's normal and nothing to be ashamed of. There are exercises you can do to help, and your GP is there to support if you don't see any improvement. So before we move on, it's time to take a moment and think about how we can make this happen. After all, information is useful, but knowing things alone won't help us to stay strong. Make a note about how you can make some changes to support your physical health and strength, and also how you want your body to work now and as we get older. So we move on to nourishing ourselves, otherwise known as eating for a long, strong life. The guidelines for eating healthily don't really change when we hit menopause, but what we eat does get more important, as what we eat influences our body's ability to function well, maintain, repair, and regrow muscle, manage symptoms like bloating, and maintain a healthy weight. So let's break it down and start with eating to stay strong. The building blocks of staying strong is eating plenty of protein. Proteins are things like lean meats, eggs, tofu, tempeh, dairy products, beans, legumes, and seitan. General guidelines recommend that we include a palm sized serving of protein in two of our daily meals, plus two protein heavy snacks. Now, if that doesn't work for you, after all, you may be like me and really prefer a biscuit rather than a protein shake as a snack. Two palm sized servings of protein in two of our meals can work just as well. The added bonus is where fact four comes in. Protein takes longer to digest than carbohydrates and fats, so it keeps us fuller for longer, which can help us manage our appetite and maintain a healthy weight. Now we move on to fruit and veg. And yes, I know most of us have spent pretty much our whole lives being told to eat more fruit and veg. And I'm afraid that really doesn't stop now. But why is it so important? Firstly, fruit and veg are full of vitamins, minerals, and they help our body to run well. Secondly, they contain loads and loads of fiber, which keeps our bowels working well, and also helps to manage our appetite, which means less mindless snacking, not slacking, snacking. So, fact five, if a high proportion of your meals are made up of fruit and veggies, it fills our tummies up and sends signals to our brains to tell us we've eaten enough, both of which can help us manage our appetites and maintain a healthy weight. Fact six is that doing this helps keep us regular, which can help manage the menopause related bloating that many of us experience. And I'm going to add fact seven in here, which is related to menopausal weight gain. There does seem to be a feeling that when you hit menopause, weight gain is inevitable. Now, that's not technically true because it's not the mechanisms of menopause that make us gain weight. Our hormonal profile does change around menopause, which can influence where our body fat is stored. And you often find that that can be focused more about around the middle than in previous phases of life. However, the thing that makes us gain weight isn't the menopause. It's that as we age, each year that passes, we require less energy to power what we do from day to day. However, what we eat doesn't tend to decrease, which tends to lead to a really, really slow but steady increase in weight. So, finally, for nourishing ourselves or eating for life, we have eating intentionally. Eating intentionally means making choices that support how we want to live, enjoying what we eat, and listening to the signals that our body gives us, all of which support eating for a long and healthy life. Step one is to set our intentions. How does what we eat give us the life that we want? So think about the life you want to have and think about how you need to eat to accomplish that. Because if we can link what we eat with having the life we want, it becomes much easier to make decisions around food because these decisions become linked to what's important to us or our values rather than transient diet rules. Step two is about enjoying what we eat. After all, food isn't just about nourishment. Conveniently, step two also includes listening to our body's signals. So, two birds with one stone and all that. So, really savoring what we eat can be as simple as slowing down. Life is busy. We often eat on the run or while we're doing other things, which means we're not really tasting what we eat and often not even registering that we've eaten at all, meaning that we tend to feel hungry still and also we mentally want more food. But we can change this by slowing things down, by sitting down when we eat, by putting our cutlery down between mouthfuls, taking a sip of what we're drinking and pausing before we start again, because that gives us time to experience the taste and texture and of what we're eating. It gives our brain the opportunity to really psychologically appreciate the process of eating, and it also helps us understand when we've had enough. And this leads me to fact 8. It takes between 15 and 20 minutes for our brains to pick up on the hormones our tummies secrete to tell us when we're full. When we eat quickly, you may notice that we end up feeling like we've had a bit too much food and we feel uncomfortably full before we've even realized that we've eaten enough. If we can slow down, it gives us the chance to pay attention to the signals that our body gives us, and that helps us to manage our appetite and decide to stop if we've had enough. Although it is completely normal to choose to continue eating beyond this point, it's just more helpful when this is our choice rather than our default setting. Like exercise, we don't have to go all out. Making small changes and see how they impact on you can make huge differences and can allow you to build on small successes. So before we move on, pause and think about, how can you make this happen? Think about what life you want and what you need to do to eat to support that. So now we move on to feeling good, otherwise known as mission look after ourselves. And first, a question for you. What is it that makes you feel good? Now, what I'm going to talk about is the science behind feeling good and the things we know influence how we feel. Sleep is the first thing we're going to cover because sleep is the foundation for feeling good and feeling healthy. When we don't get enough sleep, our body doesn't have the chance to rest and recover. It leaves us less tolerant with ourselves as well as everyone and everything else. It increases our stress levels and it makes us more prone to reaching for foods and other things that we wouldn't choose to have otherwise because they help us to feel better. Now, while we can't always control the amount of sleep we get, we can improve our sleep hygiene to maximize our chances of a restful night. So, this includes switching off devices an hour before bed. The blue light that comes from our little screens can disrupt our hormones and sleep cycles. By switching off early, we're minimizing the risk of sleep disruption. We also know that looking at things on our phone can stimulate us, which again doesn't tend to lead to getting to sleep easily. We can have a regular sleep routine. So, going to bed and then getting up at the same time can really help maintain healthy sleep cycles. We can manage our sleep environment because that makes a huge difference. Having too much light, noise, or being too hot or cold can cause disrupted sleep. And this is particularly true when it comes to night sweats. So, controlling the temperature in your room and also making choices about the fabrics that sit next to our skin can also impact on those night sweats. Getting things out of our head and onto paper can be a massive help if you struggle with switching off. So, if you've got a to do list in your head, or you're anxious about the things that you need to get done the following day, or even if you're just feeling low, writing these things down helps us to process them. It helps us to spot patterns with how we feel. It helps us to relax. And also, if you've got a mental to do list and you write it down, it reassures us that we're not going to forget the things we need to do. And we also know that memory can be a real issue in menopause. So, finding a way of managing those tasks and managing those important things by writing them down or using your phone can be really helpful in managing some of the memory related issues in menopause. Next, we move on to our mood. Now, this is influenced by many, many factors. Some we can control and some we can't. This section isn't about how we respond to the things we can't control. It's more about noticing how what we do from day to day impacts on our mood. So you might improve your sleep and notice that that makes you feel way better. You might get active and notice that that's helping you to sleep more. You might eat well and notice that that makes you feel really positive. Conversely, you may find that by focusing on too many things at the same time, it actually makes you feel worse and it makes you feel overwhelmed. The idea behind the Thrive journey that I'm running is it's about helping you to make improvements and really noticing what helps you to feel good. After all, getting stronger and healthier is no good if you are in a foul mood all of the time. Now, we know that menopause can feel incredibly negative. We can feel very, very bad, very negative through this process. And by using gratitude, what's gone well, and what we've learned from, we can really start to balance out some of those negative feelings. So we know our mental and emotional health improves when we focus on what we're grateful for. Whether it's the big things like having friends and family or having somewhere secure to live, or noticing the tiny things like seeing a bird or a flower, all of these give us a stronger sense of well-being and happiness. Taking the opportunity to reflect on what you've done well is incredibly valuable because we tend to be very self-critical, never more so than when we're going through such a monumental life change. Equally, taking things that have happened during the day where we don't think we've done so well and using them as things that we can learn from helps balance out the negativity we feel when things haven't gone to plan. And it helps us see things as learning experiences rather than bad experiences. So, no surprises that before we move on, the question is, how can you change things, or what can you focus on to support your emotional and mental health during what can be a really turbulent time? So, we're going to move on now to managing difficulty, which I have also renamed How to Make Things Suck Less. And there's no denying it, the menopause is tough. Managing the symptoms can be stressful. Feeling angry at the changes and like we can't control what we're going through can leave us feeling helpless. Now, I wanted to give you a couple of practical things that you can do to help manage your stress levels. The first echoes what we've said before, which is to stay active. Exercise improves physical health by providing all of our systems with the challenges that they need to stay strong and healthy. Just as importantly, it helps our emotional and mental health too. Being active releases endorphins in our brains that help us to feel good. It gives us a physical outlet for difficult emotions, and it helps prove to ourselves that we can do hard things, even if we don't want to. And when exercising with others, it can be even better, is it gives us the opportunity to connect, to vent, to share experiences, and if nothing else, someone else that you can complain to about hating to exercise. Being aware of our physical and mental state is a really important step in being able to manage stress and the different sensations it brings. Our emotional and physical sensations are intertwined, and sometimes it can be difficult to unpick where one ends and the other starts. Now, there is a tool to help this, which is called a body scan. I'm going to talk you through it. Just Google it or drop me a message if you want a little bit more detail. So you can do this anywhere. You can lie or you can sit down. Personally, I prefer lying down because it helps me to feel more relaxed. And I can also do it before bed so it can help me unwind and be ready to sleep. And you simply close your eyes and breathe, focusing on breathing into your tummy, feeling your belly rise and fall with each breath. When you're ready, bring your focus to your feet. Notice how they feel. Is there any tension, any soreness? As you breathe, imagine any tension floating away with every breath out. Then, when you're ready, bring your focus up, in turn, covering every area of your body until you've finished. Now, this is a form of meditation, and it can be an amazing way to relax, encourage sleep, and bring awareness to your body, as well as allowing tension to dissipate with your exhales. There is a second technique called box breathing, which is a great way of reducing stress and anxiety in the moment. And I know in menopause, that's something that can be really important. I'll describe it here, and I'm going to provide a video separately for you to follow along. And you can do this anywhere, although my favourite is sitting with my eyes closed. And you simply imagine a box in front of you with a ball in the bottom left-hand corner. You breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, and hold for 4, at the same time as imagining the ball traveling around the box, going up the side as you inhale, along the top as you hold, down the right-hand side as you exhale, and along the bottom as you hold again. You can repeat this as many times as you like. This helps slow your breathing rate, which then slows your heart rate. And imagining the ball traveling around the box gives you a mental focus that gently helps to quiet your mind. The final point for managing difficulty is talking to the people around you and finding ways to manage the situations that come up when emotions run high. What we're going through is natural and normal. What we're experiencing isn't our fault or the fault of people around us, and it is nothing to be ashamed of. Helping the people that are close to us to understand that can really make things easier. Even better is finding a way for the people around us to be supportive, particularly in the midst of a mega mood swing. And it can be as simple as getting them to ask you, "What do you need from me?" It gives them a chance to be supportive and finding a way of helping us. Even if we don't always know what we need, it can start the discussion. And it also helps the people around us remember that this isn't about them. They haven't done anything wrong and they can't solve the problem, but they can ask the question. So now we move on to what? Otherwise known as being sold shit that we often don't need. So menopause is an amazing word when it comes to selling us stuff we don't need. If you Google menopause, you'll be hit with a variety of information pages and companies trying to sell us stuff, particularly supplements. Now, when it comes to supplementation, there is little evidence that supports any efficacy of supplements to ease our symptoms. You may read about black cohosh and St. John's wort. However, the overall evidence doesn't support using them, and they can interact with other medications, so should be used cautiously, checking with a medical professional to make sure there are no contraindications to taking it. There has been work done around soy isoflavones and whether it helps with symptoms, particularly hot flushes. And this is based on women in India reporting fewer hot flushes during the menopause. But again, the evidence is really mixed as to the results. However, while the evidence isn't there, that doesn't necessarily mean that anecdotally taking supplements can't help. We know that doing things proactively can help us feel better. We know that there's a psychological impact of doing something to actively manage what we're going through, and that can make a difference. So if you find taking things helps you to feel good and what you're taking doesn't stop other medications working, go for it. If you're not taking anything and you want to, just be aware that the evidence base doesn't indicate that supplements can be helpful. However, you won't necessarily know unless you try and test things out. Now, normally what I would do now is I would open up for a question and answer. However, this isn't live, so you're not there to ask me any questions. What I would like you to do, though, is take the opportunity to ask questions in the comments. If you want to, make notes in the comments about what you found useful and whether there are things that you're planning on working on to help your experience of menopause and to help keep you happy, healthy, and strong into your older and elderly years. Geez, that's a really depressing way of putting it. I take that back. Just tell me what you're going to do. And if you've got any questions, drop me a message.